for the next 15 minutes, I'll try and explain the difference between a RAW file and a JPEG file. Now, but who really cares? I mean, at the end of the day, who really cares whether you have your photographs are in a RAW file or a JPEG file? Because at the end of the day, we just show your images to friends, whatever, or you keep them. It doesn't really matter. And what the hell is a RAW file anyway? So what I try and do, I thought like this for a while, and having looked at all this and having tried it out myself, actually, it's quite surprising if you do record something as a RAW file, how much better it is when it comes to editing. So let's move on to the next slide. So apart from this man's groin, which you should ignore, he will explain to you what a RAW file is, okay?
What's going on, guys? This is Megasm. Today I'm in London. I'm going to be talking to you about what is RAW. Let's get into it. So I'm always telling people that one of the most important things when you're starting out with photography is to make sure that you are shooting in RAW. But what does that mean? What even is RAW? What is RAW? So I'm going to tell you guys just exactly what RAW is in less than 5 points. So let's do that. Basically, RAW is just a file format, much like JPEG, which is probably what you're shooting your photos in right now if you don't know what RAW is. The difference is a RAW is an uncompressed file format. So when you're shooting JPEG, the camera will apply in-camera edits like contrast, white balance, a little bit of saturation, etc., and then compress that file into a smaller file and then ship it out to your memory card. However, when you shoot in RAW, none of this happens. So when you shoot in RAW, you get exactly what you shoot on the camera. It's a much larger file and it's uncompressed. So what this means is basically RAW retains a lot more information from the image when it's saved as a file. Whilst JPEG might be great if you're not really applying any after shoot edits to the image, probably best to start shooting in RAW now rather than later. 2, once you've captured a RAW image, it needs to be processed and compressed to its final file state, which is most likely going to actually be JPEG. The difference is when you convert the file to a JPEG outside of the camera, you have much more control and flexibility over the final look of the image. You've used editing software to manipulate the pixels and final look of the image before you convert it to JPEG, and obviously, hopefully, create the look that you want, not the look the camera wants. Make sense? 3, most cameras automatically shoot in JPEG unless you manually go into the settings of your DSLR and change it to shooting in RAW. Normally, RAW files can only be opened or viewed if you have a RAW file viewer on your computer or editing software that deals with that kind of file. So unless a person you're sending the RAW images to is also a photographer, it's not very likely that they're going to be able to open those images or view them. That means it's probably best to convert the image to a JPEG before sending it over. It's also important to note that whilst a RAW can be compressed and converted to a JPEG file, it can't be done in reverse because you can't uncompress the JPEG and then make it into a RAW. Does that make sense? Shooting in RAW gives you way more flexibility when it comes to editing and the final outcome of your images. I would highly recommend shooting in RAW now rather than later to save yourself hassle further down the line. I have a bunch of images from when I went to the Alps pre-shooting in RAW, and they're amazing photos, but I can't edit them to the extent I want because I shot in JPEG and I literally hate myself ever since for it, so don't be me. So to wrap this up and summarize, a RAW file is an uncompressed image file shot in camera without any in-camera edits applied to it. It allows a higher range of flexibility when editing pixels within an image and allows you to fix exposure and colors to a high degree. As the RAW file is uncompressed, it is a larger file than the JPEG, so obviously it's going to take up more space on a memory card, but of course it can be compressed and converted to a JPEG on the computer. So that's it, guys. I hope you now have a slightly better understanding of what a RAW file actually is.
All right, I'll now try and translate from a younger person to a more mature audience. Okay, so what we need to do is just have a very quick look in a very simple way in how a digital camera actually works.
What about digital cameras?
Good question. As camera technology evolved, the way images were stored changed too. Photographic film strips were replaced with electronic film, giving birth to the digital camera era. Instead of using chemicals to react with light to form permanent patterns, Electronic film picks up colors on a light reactive surface and converts them into electric signals. These electric signals can then be translated by a computer into an image that can be displayed on any type of screen, like a computer screen or a TV. This is different than the old film strips, which could only be printed on paper. These digital images can be stored, shared, or deleted from the memory card at any time. Want to know more about cameras?
Absolutely, yes.
He's so keen, isn't he? Right. Okay. So here is a very simplistic drawing of a digital camera. So the light comes in from the left, the yellow arrow. It goes through the lens and eventually hits a sensor at the back of the camera. Now that sensor then translates everything into a digital format, i.e. zeros and ones, and sends the electrical signal into a memory card where it's stored. So that is stored as raw data. Now, in most of our cameras, whether it be a camera or a mobile phone, in between the sensor and the memory is a processor. And if your camera is elected to make it into a JPEG file, which most of ours does, it takes some of that data and it changes it, and it tries to create the best possible image it can. So this has all been done automatically inside the camera. It takes that data, creates the image using the settings that you've set on the camera or the automatic settings that the camera may well have. Once it's done that, it then squeezes the file down and compresses it, makes it smaller, and then puts the file into the memory of the device, normally on a card in a camera, as a JPEG file. Now, the raw data that it doesn't use gets thrown away. So it's all gone completely. So you've just got one file, the JPEG file, and it does that in an instance. So you can see it straight away. Now, a raw file, it doesn't do that. So the data that is created by that sensor goes straight to the memory and sits there as a raw file. It's not changed in any way whatsoever by the camera. That's the difference between the two. The fact is, you can't actually see that raw file. Only way you can see it is to put it into a editing, a post-processing software or software normally on your computer, which allows you to actually see it. So let's move on to the next one. I hope that's reasonably clear. So a JPEG, which ridiculous name, isn't it? Why would you call something a JPEG? Basically, in 1992, a load of experts got together from different companies in the States and decided that they need to create an image file which could be universal, which could be used on any single camera, any device, no matter what the make is. So they decided what to call it. Obviously, dot really clever small file was a bit large. Dot techie wizardry similar to witchcraft, even larger. So they named the file after themselves. So they were called the Joint Photographic Experts Group, or JPEG. So that's how a JPEG got its name. Okay, let's have a quick look at what a raw picture looks like and a JPEG picture looks like. Now, looking at the two, you'd say that's ridiculous. Why on earth would I take a picture in RAW as against JPEG when it's so obviously a JPEG is so much better than RAW? Well, a JPEG file, like the younger guy said earlier, has been filled around with by the device that you took the photograph to make it as good as it possibly can. And so the camera has made that picture, the JPEG on the right, as best as it can, which is way better than the raw file on the left. The only difference is the JPEG you can put into editing software and you can still improve, but it's limited to how much you can improve because it's got rid of all the raw data that was left over when it was created. So, but the raw file has not been mucked about by the device you took the photograph on. So all of the data is still there, which means that you can take that file and you can change it and edit it right down to the ultimate pixels. And theoretically, if you're skilled and good and take your time, you'll have a superior image. So let's move on to the next one. Now, this one here is that same picture blown up. Now, as you can see on the right-hand side, that's a JPEG which the camera has processed, which all your cameras do automatically. That's using your settings or the automatic settings on the camera. You have no control over that. The only control you have is when you take that file and put it into a computer and then you edit it. Now, the raw file, this one on the left-hand side, as you can see there, that one there has gone into an editing program, in this case, Photoshop, and has, because it contains every single bit of data, it's able to be manipulated better than the JPEG is. So you can see the sharpness of the man's eyes, you can see the hairs on his head and his eyebrows. You can clearly see it's actually a superior image. But what you must remember is that if you don't want to do photo editing, or you haven't got a photo editor that will take a raw file, there is absolutely no point whatsoever in your camera taking a raw file, because you cannot see it and you certainly can't use it. The other thing to remember is a JPEG file is a universal format. A JPEG file taken on a Sony camera will be able to be viewed anywhere in the world, as a Nikon one or a Canon camera. It doesn't make any difference. It's an agreed universal format. RAW, there's no such thing. Each camera manufacturer has its own version of a RAW file. So when you go to the software, but say in this case, Photoshop within its software has the ability to open loads and loads of different RAW files from different manufacturers. So a RAW file is not universal, a JPEG is universal. So as the younger guy said, when you process a RAW file and you finish it like the one on the left and you get a really good image, it's normal then to save it out as a different file, normally a JPEG file. Because a JPEG file you can send to anybody, it can go on the internet, you can print from it immediately. It's a really, really successful and useful file. Okay, so this is a 39 seconds now explanation of the difference between JPEG and RAW.
This is like a raw file. When processing an image, you can adjust features like exposure, white balance, and shadows, features you'd normally control in your camera. And this is like a JPEG file. You really can't control much when processing an image like this. And now you know the main difference between RAW and JPEG.
Okay, so let's have a quick summary then. So if you're not interested in editing to a really high standard, then you just stay with the JPEG file. Because a JPEG file, as you know, you can edit anyway. But there's a limit to the editing simply because it doesn't contain all the data that the original image was processed with. A RAW does. That's the difference. It's a bit like I liken it to instant meal. You can go and buy a meal from the co-op and you can stick it in your microwave, heat it up and eat it, and it tastes great. However, if you were to go out and buy all the ingredients separately and you were to cook it yourself, the chances are that that meal would always taste better than the ready-made one. That's in my head is a sort of simplistic way of looking at it. Now, if you want to edit to a high standard, then you save your images in RAW. So say you need that software in order to edit it or view it in the first place. Affinity Photo is what we use, or Photoshop, but there's plenty of programs. I haven't looked into free versions, but I'm sure there's probably free programs which allow you to do it as well now. If you want to have the best of both worlds, a lot of cameras these days and even mobile phones will actually take the image as a JPEG and a RAW file at the same time. So your camera has got two files. So if you want to experiment, you can take your JPEG image, edit it, then take the raw image and edit it and see which one of those you can bring up to look better. The only thing to remember, a raw file is really large. So it could be anything from 4 to 8 times the size of a JPEG file. So if you were taking a load of photographs that day and you decide to take it as a JPEG and a raw, or just a raw file, you'll fill up your memory card really quickly. So it's something to remember. So a JPEG file is a very good standard. It's been around for decades and we're still using it, and it's highly successful and instantly available, and a really clever idea. But if you look at the editing, the best editing you're going to ever get is from a raw file. And of course, when you finish the raw file, you can save it out as a JPEG, and then you're back to normality. You can send it to everybody and they can email it and so on and so on. So, okay, so finally.
And that's all, folks.
Okay, that's it, guys. I hope that explains some of it and it's not too complicated.
Just want to give a quick run through on the basics of Photoshop. It's a very complicated system, and there's an awful lot you can do with it. So I'm just going to cover the very basics. I've opened up this now it comes in 3 parts: Bridge, Camera Raw, and Photoshop itself. Now I've opened up this file here. This is the Bridge view. It's where you can access all of your files on your computer, all the way down here. And I've selected these few photographs for the purpose of this demonstration. You will see that there's a JPEG file and there's these CR2 files. Now CR2 is Canon's version of a RAW file. And I'm really grateful to Nigel to lead into this with the difference between RAW and JPEG. So from here, you can either open direct into Photoshop or into the Camera Raw section. Camera Raw is ideal for initial processing of photographs. You've got several ways you can open. You select a photograph and you can go to File, Open With, and you can even open a JPEG in the RAW section. If I choose this one now, another way to open is to right-click on your mouse and you get the same drop-down box. So I'll just open this opening Camera Raw, this shot of a magpie. It just takes a few seconds. Now, the problem with this particular photograph was that the background was very contrasty. I had a very large bright area and a fairly dark area too. So in order to stop overexposing the white area and getting lots of white out, I chose to underexpose the photograph by a stop or so, because I knew you can recover in RAW, you can recover the detail in the dark areas better than you can recover lost data in the bright areas. Now this section has got several little drop-down boxes here, and the basic section is where you've got all of your main adjustments. And you've also got the histogram up the top here, if you want to use that. Exposure, if I slide the exposure up, you can see what would have happened if I'd got the bird correctly exposed. The background's all shot out. So in order to bring the bird into in detail, you can use one of these sliders. The shadows will take take the detail out of the black and bring up the good view of the bird. There are other sliders here. There's clarity, where you sharpens up the picture. There's vibrance. And you've also got your ISO setting adjustments, temperature. You take it down, it goes bluey, or it goes red. There's a little button down here where you can reset to the original settings. Now, taking out the shadows, and we'll take out a little bit of the black. Another feature here is the zoom. If you can see there, there's a little cross in the pointer there. If you press the left-hand button, you can zoom in by sliding left and right. Oh, it's a bit shaky there. So you can see the amount of detail that the raw file has picked up on the head of this bird here, the little whiskers. There's even a bit of straw hanging here. Which demonstrates Nigel's point on how much more detail you get in a raw file for editing. That's the basic section. Other sections down here, there's one here for detail, which gives you a sharpening option. You can see I can sharpen up a bit, and you can get rid of background noise. Other sections down here, you've got the curve, which Ian has demonstrated on his previous sections. You've got optics, which is a good one for getting rid of fringing. As you know, sometimes you get around the edge of the photograph, you get purple and green fringing. You can remove that here. And another good one is the effects. If I just go back here and zoom back out, for putting in vignetting, you can get a white or a black vignette there. So these are just some of the basic things that you can do in Photoshop RAW or Camera RAW. From here, you can either, if you click on the Done button, it'll return the adjusted photograph into the bridge section. Or you can click on Open, and that will open the photograph up in Photoshop eventually. Here it comes. It just takes a few seconds to do this. There we go. Now there's the photograph in Photoshop. In Photoshop, you have all sorts of tools down here. This is a spot removal, so you can, you know, go over an area and remove any blemishes there might be there. Other things, there's where are we? There's a text version where you can enter text, such as magpie.
John, I'm just seeing your selection of slides at the moment. I'm not seeing anything else. So I can see your magpie as a CR2 file, but I can't see it as a JPEG or anything else.
Okay.
Maybe you didn't save it.
Where are we? Okay, I'm sorry about that. I've got it on my screen. Let's go back to bridge. You can see this is the one with the Magpie's there, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I'll try another routine. And did you see the camera raw section? All right, where I did the adjustments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, you saw that, all right. Okay, I'll move on from that then. Up here, I've got. I wanted to take a photograph of the Bognor Centre, and I couldn't get it all in one frame, so I took 2 shots with the intention of merging them. So another thing you can do is select both photographs and then right click open with raw, and it brings in both photographs down here. In this section, if you go to the photograph here, there's a 3 little dots. If you click on that, you can select all, so that any adjustments you make to the photograph will affect both photographs. Such as if I go here and go to exposure, or take out the highlights. Let's try that. Trying to bring back some of the sky there. I'll take exposure down a little bit. There we go. And there's a clarity slider here to bring that back. I'll take out some shadows now, which brightens it up again, and some blacks. And once you've done that, you can see that both photographs have had the same adjustments made to them. Once you've done that, if you again right click on the photograph, there's an option down here to merge to panorama. So I'll click that, and it's put the 2 photographs together. And but where the camera where it's done the realigning, it's taken out some of the edges. There's an auto fill section there, so it will fill those 2, automatically fill that. Yeah. And then if I now go to click on the merge button, it'll give me the result. If I save, it'll come up with the finished photographs, which you can see is quite a good effect there.
Very
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
So this is amongst the fantastic things you can do with Photoshop. And if I click done, that'll put that finished photograph into the raw. It's in there somewhere behind here, I think.
yeah. Top row.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hiding it with my. Anyway, it's there it is. Yep. So you can now, if you want, open this in Photoshop. Open with Photoshop. I don't know if it's going to lose this on the display again. No, it doesn't want to do it. It's gone back to the magpie.
Oh no. John, you
Oh, it's there. Can you see that?
no, we're still on the original.
Yeah, okay.
John, you've got 4 minutes. If you
Okay,
want, you don't have to finish in 4 minutes.
no,
You might want to pick a break point.
okay. Let's close that. Right, we're back here now. Are we back with you?
We're still looking at the original set of slides with the panorama
Yeah, okay.
highlighted.
Yeah, okay. I think I'll just do one quick one then. If I select this photo I took at an air show and open in RAW, I just wanted to demonstrate one other feature there. As you can see, we've got a very bright sky again, and the aircraft itself is not badly exposed. There's an option up here, this little shaded square up here, where you can, it's a filter, a variable filter, and you can drag and draw it down and fill in and make adjustments to the amount that you want to do in there. As sliders, all the usual sliders, white balance and exposure, temperature. You bring temperature up if you want it more blue. It's just affecting the area that's set there. And then if I go back to the normal sliders, you've got that set, and you can now perhaps bring up the clarity.
Okay.
So there are many options. Yeah. Shall I stop there?
Yeah, less than a minute. And I suggest what we do is pick up you the moment we start the second half. This is the first of the photo task pictures, and sorry, I've got a bit of grunge at the top of my screen. I take it that you can all hear me and that there's no echoing this time.
Yep.
Is that true?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
That's good.
Right. Now, this time we had a really excellent crop, if I may use the word, of photos in the bursting forth. We actually got 30 photos. Now, I've had to weed it down, and not necessarily in terms of the best photo or the worst photos or whatever. I've tried to do a selection across to first of all show you some really excellent pictures like this particular one here, and also ones that, whilst they're excellent, could maybe changed or a little bit improved by just doing a couple of little tweaks here and there. And you know, I like to do a bit of improvisation with the photos. So away we go. This daffodil, I think, is absolutely brilliant. The blue sky is beautifully even. You've got a really crisp image, and I think what you can tell from this, unfortunately or fortunately, is that this has been taken with an absolutely top-class camera and lens. The quality that you'll see from this is really, you know, it will take an enormous amount of zooming, and yet the overall effect is excellent. The cropping's done well, and what more can I say? Really good photo. So let's go on and have a look at another one. Another one, beautiful. Leading lines coming up. Very, very fine detail. You notice on the fritillary edge of the embryonic leaves there, the stem, everything beautifully in focus, lovely background, fading behind, and a nice leading line coming up from the corner, drawing your eye in. Brilliant. And again, it's you can see that we're probably just overdoing it a little bit. There's a little bit of shape there, but I am giving it a bit of a hard test there. But another lovely picture. Excellent work there. And an entirely different forward bursting forth. Love that. it's wonderful, isn't it, when you can see the sky and the sun coming out, going through in that way. The only thing that might do is you can see the water here is drifting off down to the right hand side a little bit. So if we do my usual trick of coming in here and going to adjustments, just going to move that up out of the way if you can see it. We can go into, this is Photoscape, by the way, which is free, unlike Photoshop, which will cost you an arm and a leg, but is the top product. Photoscape will in fact do RAW. I can't say the RAW conversion is necessarily as good as the inbuilt ones that you get for Canon, Olympus, and so on, Nikon, but it will handle RAW conversions, and it's free. So having done that little plug for those that don't want to spend the money on Photoshop, I just thought it would be useful here just to straighten that off. Again, what you're trying to do with all these things when you're trying to straighten something is to get a feel for what ought to be a horizontal line. And here it's this set of little ponds. You could probably do it off that cloud as well, but the ponds work nicely, so I can just apply that. And it just stops your eye being distracted, which it is if something isn't quite level. You can see if I go into this, you can see it's just little bits of water lying on the field. Really excellent. That's the sort of thing you can turn into a nice, probably an A3 even, and put it on your wall. Lovely. Okay, let's move on. I'm not going to save it. Here's some blackthorn, in fact, I know it's an amazing amount of blossom on there, isn't it? Really excellent. What you could do if you wanted with this is, I'm going to zoom it, which will give the effect of cropping, but you could actually, if you wanted to, pull right in and have a cropped image with all of the blossom without any of the extraneous stuff on the outside, the background. But this looks quite nice and sharp until you go into adjustments. Let's just do a white balance on this. I'll just zoom in a little bit just so you can see what's going on. And if I go into white balance here, I can pick up a white. You can see it's on all the pixels. You see what's happened when I do that? I'll just do a compare here. This is what I love about this product. You can just do a nice simple compare. So that's how it was before. And now you can see a sort of yellowy green tinge. Pull it out and it's turned it almost like a black and white image, except of course you can see the green in the background. But that, I think, has just made a little bit of difference to that. So I can save that. And there's also one other thing you can do with this. And this is just for playing rather than any really aesthetic things. I think that is brilliant. You know, you've got the real white has come out there now. But up here, and I think this is in the paid version, which is about 30 quid or whatever, you can pull up on film different types of film. And one of these is Fujifilm Velvia. And what Photoscape have done is they have basically spoofed what a Velvia image would look like. And so if you look at that compared to that's the nice white one that we had. Now you go into Velvia and you've made it even lighter. So you've really brought the white out. And if I go into undo, you can go back a stage and then go back a stage again. So that was the original. Come on, you brought the white out. I thought that was really excellent. And then you put on the Velvia filter to it, and you really brought some white out. Lovely. Anyway, that's Ian playing to a certain extent, but it's good. I'm not going to save that photo either. Another excellent bud. The realism on this, I mean, obviously is real, but look at the detail and the quality of that image coming up. Beautifully cropped, excellent colors, very blurred background, excellent, very fine detail there. You know, you're only going to get that off a really good lens. And there, again, we're running with, funny enough, a very shallow depth of field here. We've got the these petals here are all pretty much in focus. We've got a little bit of whiting out there that you might just want to just drop the exposure very slightly. But here, which is only fractionally behind, is out of focus. These stamens are in focus, and then the bud is out of focus. But, you know, beautiful, lovely colouring, excellent work, leading line coming up from the side. And a lot of people putting their photos in have done similar sorts of things here. So let's go on to the next one. Same sort of thing. Magnolia, can't think. Somebody can correct me. Beautifully sharp round there, you notice, but slightly unfocused here. It's a shame that we weren't able to hold all the blossom, all the buds, or flowers, if you want to call them that, in focus. You just see it's just a little bit of edging down there, and also up there where they're just slightly out of focus, but that is pin sharp. You can see all the way around there. Beautiful. Really nice, simple picture. Maybe you could airbrush that out because that's sort of a bit of a dead stem that doesn't do anything, but lovely photo again. And some really good thinking to get a good clear background. And here we have some nice, oh, I ought to brush up on my flowers. I'll tell you what they all were. I'm sure Penny or somebody like that would be able to assist. But this is an interesting picture in that it's got it's got a lot of background to it. It's very, very complex, and in some ways it might be better if we cut down the amount of things that are going on. I'm going to do a pseudo crop again, and just sort of pull back and just say, well, look, let's just try and bring this part of the picture in, and just focus on that, or maybe come over here and just focus on this bit. But what you will have noticed, lovely colors, nicely taken, good background, not quite as diffuse as in other pictures that we've had. And also you'll notice that the detail on the stamen is not so good. Now, I don't know whether you noticed, but the number of pixels on here is 1200 by 913. So you're really looking at a fairly low resolution image. Now, I don't know who or what the who took it or what the camera is. You know, I'm talking totally anonymously on this, but this I would suspect is a mobile phone camera. And the problem you get is you can take some really lovely pictures, but you can't really zoom in on them, and you're limited in what you can do to a certain extent. So they're ideal you've got them in your pocket, you take all the pictures you want, but you see how you're losing the detail on the stamen. And that's because you're just not getting enough pixels to be able to produce something that would work really well with that. Having said that, this is 1280 by 1280 again, so that's not a particularly large picture, sort of 1.5 megapixels, 2 megapixels. But look at the color on that. Isn't that lovely? You can see the stamens in there, and it's been cropped absolutely excellently. The background is blurred, it's out of focus. You've got really sharp edges to the leaves here. And I think, funny enough, of all the images tonight, this is my favorite. It's almost like there's a light in there just shining through on it. So excellent. Wouldn't touch that. Wouldn't even think about doing anything with that one. Here's another one. Again, blossom. Taken in the afternoon, I think, from what I remember, about 3:30, and just a few days ago. And you've got this really nice pink effect coming through, which may be the light, but let's just do a white balance on it just to show you. If I put the white balance onto that pink, it will cut that pink right back to a white image. Now I can compare that. So you see how we've been able to change the balance of the white on that, and I can change the balance just by picking different areas. You see, by going to this area, I've brought out a greeny blue on it. If I go back to there, I can bring it back to the original. If I go on to a heavy pink there, I can turn it into a really artistic sort of light turquoise almost. So let's not mess around anymore. Lovely picture, really nice and sharp. You've got all the stamens there coming around beautifully. It's a toss-up whether I would play with the white balance or not, but we've got pretty much the center all in focus, and even out as far as here is running well with those leaves as well. So another really nice picture, good color, very interesting there. And here, I think it's a real shame here, because this is obviously 1280 by 853, very low. If you're looking at modern cameras, you're looking at anything like 6,000 by 4,000 pixels, maybe, 24 megapixels or whatever. And here you're looking at, well, about 1 megapixel. And it shows, unfortunately, because the composition of this is lovely. You've got the center, and you've got the crocuses are bursting out in all angles away. But unfortunately, you've not got the detail that you might like to see with it. If you took this as being an artistic picture, and then I think, yeah, you could say, yep, that looks good. You've got the same thing with the statement. So depending on how you want to look at this picture, you can either say that's great, or you can say, oh, I wish I'd had a higher resolution camera. But really, really interesting the way that the image has managed to capture the outer crocuses moving out, as if the whole thing is bursting out from this center here. So well done on that one. Now here's an interesting one. Another bit of blossom bursting forth again. And here we've got just this bit of twig, and these blossoms here, and that one there, and the rest are all out of focus. And I couldn't work this out, but I think that this stem is not straight, but is actually bending forward here and here and backward a bit there, which is why that bud there at the back is in focus and the others are out of focus. But lovely colouring again. And look at it, frost on the I can't think of the word.
Crocuses.
Crocus.
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 Yeah. Yes,
Crocus.
Crocus.
they're lovely. Crocus, thank you for the words. And the only thing I'd have done with that is I would have just whipped out that bit there. Sorry, let's pull that down because you don't need that. Oh, I've lost it now. Sorry. I just cropped that out. There you are. You don't need that little fraction. The rest of it, beautiful. Love the way the crystals around there, the colours, the detail. Lovely photos. I'm not going to save it. Here's another one. Now, this is one that gives me the urge to do something with it. I think it's lovely as it stands, but what I could do, you see, with this, just for fun, is I could do a fairly tight crop on this. Let's just pull that in. So I'm cheating a bit, but there we are. So we've got our leading line, if you like, down there. So I crop that down, and then that's still a little bit flat. So let's just play. I'm going to do. You remember I do masking all the time, so we'll do a mask, and that's far too big. That brush. Let's drop the brush down to, I don't know, about 20, 25, something like that. Yeah, that looks like the right size, and you'll see it all go red as I start masking this in. I can make it a little bit bigger actually. Let's just go up a little bit. And I don't want to spend a lot of time doing this, but it's just show you what you can do with without cheating too much, and all free, of course. So what we'll do is we'll just colour that up. So now you can see everything that's red is going to be editable in whatever way I want. So you can't see that mask now, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to whip the saturation up, and I'm going to drop it up to about 50, 60 odd. Let's leave it at 60. Look at the way that's brought that up. So you see there's the original. And what I've done is I've really brought the yellows out in it, and I think that works quite nicely. It just sort of lifts it and makes it an interesting picture. And of course, if you want it green, you can have it green, or you can have it purple if you wanted. But that's for people that want to play with these things. So let's just put it back to naught again, or close to that. That's close enough, but you see how we've managed to do that. So it's, I'm not going to save that one either. Lovely. Got this effect of the clouds pulling across and the sun underneath it, and I love shots like that. You know, the foreground isn't black and white, but to all intents and purposes it is. What you can do there again, if you want, is go into levels. You know, I love levels with the histogram on it. What I could do there is I could pull that down. Let's just pull that, make it a bit brighter. I'm not sure I want to do that, but I could also cut that back. Now that's by bringing the mid-range, the gamma, right down, you see what I'm doing? I'm darkening it all up. I can pull that down as well. So now you're almost, what we've now got is the silhouette running along the bottom, and we've highlighted the colours in the sky, and I can bring that back up a bit just to really emphasize it. So there's the original. And just by playing a little bit with the levels, you can see how I've made it much starker and more dynamic, I suppose, picture. Lovely, great. But that's Ian playing. I think that works well. I think it brings out the clouds a little bit better. But a lovely original photo. If you didn't have the original photo, you couldn't do this to it. So there we are. And guess what I'm going to say here? Straighten. Great image again, but everybody's leaning to the right. So let's just move them round a bit. There we are. So we've got everybody upright. There we are. And what are we on, number 17? I could do some more levels on this one. I played with levels on this as well, because the sky allows you to really work on that. And I'm going to bring that up, just take off that, this piece here, you really don't need. So I'll pull that off. I'll run that up to about 30. I'm going to drop the gamma to about 0.9, just to help bring out the color again. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull that down quite a bit to about 180. 186 or whatever. But you see, I'm really bringing out the red in the image. So you can play with this in all sorts of ways depending on what your personal taste is, but that's really emphasized the clouds, brought out a big red in the color. And you can make it feel like however you want, really. I've only got 2 minutes left, funnily enough. I've whittled on far too long. Let's just show you these last two pictures. Another lovely one. That one is brilliant, and that works well with a bit of heavy sharpening. If you pull the radius up on that very heavily, you see how that's brought the sharpening up? Brilliant. I'm sorry, I'm going to run out of time on here, and I'll leave you with that lovely one. I would have cropped that top off, to be honest, but lovely picture coming up, focuses heavily on that picture. That's it. I'm going to come out of that.